Good afternoon and welcome to the Dairy Signal. We're glad you could join us today. Today's episode focuses on innovation in the dairy industry, specifically around young stock management and early life insights. We'll be learning more about Merck Animal Health's new Sense Hub Dairy Young Stock product, an exciting technology designed to help producers monitor, manage, and support calves and heifers more efficiently. But before we dive in, I want to give a little bit of context to why we have Merck with us here today. One of PDP's programs that we showcase at our business conference every year is Nexus. The point of Nexus is to showcase innovation in the dairy industry. And with that, Merck was selected to give a presentation at both days of our business conference showcasing their product and why will help dairy farmers move forward in their operation. Before we introduce our speakers, I do want to remind you guys that this is a live program. So if you would like to ask a question in real time, you can click the three dots at the bottom right corner of your screen and click Ask a Question. And if you're here for continuing education credits, a quiz will pop up at the very end of the episode. Please complete the quiz and then click Submit. With that, I would like to turn it over to Dr. Jennifer Wilson with Merck Animal Health and Jared Henriksen with Bell Holsteins to get us started. With that, it's over to you.
All right, thanks, Haley. This is Jennifer Wilson. I'm a veterinarian with Merck Animal Health. I work in the customer success dairy monitoring space, so not the pharmaceutical company piece that you usually expect Merck to be in, but in the technology space. I come from a herdsman slash dairy manager slash veterinarian perspective. So I managed managed a herd, went to vet school, came out of vet school, and then was a staff veterinarian for a large herd in Idaho. And with also had associated young stock, custom dairy heifer raising associated with it. So then I left there about 2 years ago and came to work for Merck Animal Health in the customer success space. So my job, as far as that goes, is to help producers as they move through the transition from traditional dairy management, where you're using your eyeballs to look at cows and find the sick ones, find the heats, that sort of thing, and moving more towards using technology to generate that list and then create trust in those lists as we go forward. So that's kind of my piece. I'll kick it over to Jared so he can introduce himself and kind of tell you about Bella.
Good morning. My name is Jared Henriksen. We have Bella Holsteins in Platteville, Colorado. We are currently milking just over 5,000 on two different locations. We have been with Sense Hub now for about a year and a half. We've used it in our program, in our calf program, to help us just reduce our labor costs, treatments, and death loss. So we've been pretty happy with the monitoring system. And I've been the manager here now for 20 years, back home from college. And yeah, excited to talk about everything today.
Cool. Thanks, Jared. So I think I've got slides up here ready to go to tell you guys a little bit more about young stock, what it is, and how we're sort of using it in the field to help folks. So we'll go ahead and get started there. So what is young stock? So our young stock monitoring system is a technology that lets you find calves earlier in the disease process. So hopefully our treatments will be more effective because we're able to catch calves earlier in that illness cycle. So we're going to put an ear tag in as day olds, and then that tag can stay in through the entire life of the animal. Or if you want to change it for a collar as they come into the milking cow herd to leverage sort gates and that sort of thing, that's great too. But it helps concentrate where labor is going to spend their time. So instead of having to look at, for example, 1,000 calves today, the list has 40. So we're going to go look at those 40 and pay extra attention to those. So you're able to utilize those guys that have really good calf eyes or health eyes to go look at those specific calves and then not have to look at everybody else quite so specifically. So we have an ear tag, and the ear tag is going to go in calves at birth. So the sooner you put the tag in, the sooner we can get you information. So we're looking at about 27 hours after the tag goes in, we can start the animal's being compared to herself, and we're creating this, there's an algorithm behind it, taking all the information based on activity and suckling and the cow states that we're putting together to give you a number to say, hey, if the calf is above this threshold, she's having a great day. And if she's below, then we need to go take a look at her. So that tag as a management tool has a little flashy light on it. So that LED light has about 300 hours of battery life behind it. So we're able to say if the calf is below the threshold that we're going to be concerned about, she's going to pop on the list. And then however you manage your farm for most contact time for having access to those calves, whether it's at feeding or whether it's when your treaters are walking by, you want lights to come on, we can schedule the calves that are on the list. That list set of lights will turn on at X time. So if you want to turn it on at 6 in the morning when you feed once, and again at 3 in the afternoon when you feed again, great, we can do that for you. So a little blinky light is an easy way for people to find rather than having to use a list to go find individual calves. We can turn the light on and it's faster and easier to identify. So again, putting that tag in early matters. So the earlier it goes in, the earlier we can get you information. If you put that tag in, say when the calf is going to come out of the hutch at 90 days of age or something to look at that transition period at exit, it's going to take a week to get that information. So the earlier they go in, the faster we're going to baseline them on that front end. And then there's a little bit of a gap there. I think it's on my next slide. It's not. So there's a little bit of a gap when calves come out of hutches. We're going to change the algorithm there and basically go on break for a day just because we know those calves are going to change. Their behavior changes a lot that first instance when they go out of the hutch into a new area. So we'll re-baseline again there. So this is an example of what the young stock health report is going to look like. So this is what Jared's guys could look at every day if they're not just looking for blinky lights. So we're going to give you some basic information on that report, but the most important part is going to be that health index number on the far right there. So a calf having a normal day is going to be set at 100, and then if she gets below 86, that's going to be the threshold for alarm, where she'll come on this report. So generally speaking, if she's on the report, we should look at her. I don't tend to tell folks to look too closely at what the number is. It's more if she's on the report, put eyes on her. That keeps it really simple for your guys in the field. So this is a little bit closer look at what that calf page looks like per se. So if you're familiar with cow monitoring at all, we look at rumination, we look at activity and all these changes. In calves, we're going to focus a lot more on that. Is she on the report or not on the report? So we can look at how the activity numbers are changing down there. So if you look on this page, the yellow line that you follow across the bottom, that's going to be her activity in the hutch. This is about a 46-day-old calf. The purple or brownish color is going to be rumination. We know that starts by about 2 weeks of age. Is starting to trend up and be visible. And then the little green line that it's a little difficult to see, that's going to be eating time. So there's one other piece there called suckling that you can't see in this one. But that's the suckling time and the activity are the main drivers in that algorithm to sort of flag calves for being sick on the front end. So the 1, 2, 3 that you've got across there, those are kind of giving you examples of points in time where the calf was on the health list and then got treated at number 2, and then you can see the improvement in 3. But as we look across the top, so across the top of this graph where it's white, that calf's at 100. As it gets gray, she's dropping below 100 on the health index. And then when she gets to that red line, that's 86. So anything under the red line there is going to be when she would show up on a health report. So then you can kind of get a visual of what's happening to that calf over time. And we can zoom these in and out. So this one set at, I think, 30 days. We can look at 180 days. So you can kind of get a nice perspective of what that calf has done over time if you want to come back and look at them. This is an example of what the monitor or the LED light report. It's not a report. Basically, it's the place to go and set when you want your lights to come on. So you can set what report it is. So if you have, for example, a report for your hutch aged calves and you have a report for your corral aged calves, you can set each report to run at a different time. If you want your hutch calf one to come on twice, you can set one for 6 in the morning and another one for 3 in the afternoon. How fast you want the light to blink, what time they come on, how long they'll run. So that 300 hours of battery life is important, and we're trying to maximize the use we get out of our tag. So if we can, anything we can do to like schedule that to be a little bit shorter so you can extend the tag life is great. And then what days of the week you want to have it turn on for. So maybe you have a management task of you want to go do X, Y, and Z. We can get these lights to come on for you. So another thinking of how we manage calves in general, traditionally, we've always used just visual observation. So guy walking down a hutch row, looking at calves every day. It's pretty subjective. It's quite possible in today's labor markets that that guy was on a roofing crew or digging ditches 2 days ago, and now he's on your calf health crew and he's just learning what to do. So anything extra tools that we have are always going to be useful for these guys. The calf health scoring systems, I think, are still pretty subjective also, at least gives you a metric to put a number to. But again, there's a lot of subjectivity there. Lung ultrasound, I feel like, is a lot more accurate. It's nicer as a veterinarian, certainly it's a nice tool to have, but it takes time, it takes training, and realistically, in the grand scheme of things, it's really hard to get through enough calves you can't do this to every calf every day by any means. So the monitoring system gets useful that way, and that it's 24/7, it's always there and it's always on. So it's always there to figure out this calf is a little different, and we're always comparing her to herself, right? Doesn't matter what her herd mates are doing. It's just what's happening with this calf individually. So we want to know if she's having a bad day, she can turn her little light on, raise her little hand and say, hey, I'm having a bad day. I need attention today. So we've got a little bit of data out there. If you want this QR code, you can grab it off the screen there. And then we'll just kind of walk through what a little bit of this paper came out with, the differences using young stock. So about 400 calves in each group, 400 with ear tags monitoring, and then about 400 that were standard farm protocols for basically just visual observation. They didn't have any other scoring systems involved there. So the young stock group, they were only looking at the calves that were on the health list. So she was below that red line. It was 86 or under. Those were the calves that got looked at twice a day. So they had the opportunity to check them, see if they were on the list in the morning, and then check them to see if they were on the list in the afternoon. On average, of those 400 calves, they had about 8 calves on the list each day, ranging between 1 and 30. And then the other group of calves, your controls, were just a standard sort of visual observation. And then they also did some rectal temperatures once a week just to look and see where calves were. So when they came back and looked at these calves, pre-weaning wise, as far as treated, more animals got treated that were on the monitoring system. I think Jared would say that might be somewhat true for them also. A little bit different story because they had some overtreatment, but we'll get there. But generally speaking, because the alerts are there, people looked at calves, found a few more problems to treat. So more calves were treated than in the control groups for pneumonia in this study. And then on the backside, after these calves came out and they did lung ultrasounds on them, they actually found that those calves that had been treated earlier that were on the monitoring system had better lung scores overall. So not too surprising, if we're treating animals earlier, they should be resolving faster and then should have better lung scores when they come out. So that kind of makes sense, fits what you would hope to see out of it. And then the other piece that's really important, especially in today's calf price world, being able to decrease your death loss and culling overall is super important. So they ended up being about 1.7% difference in decreased. So for this farm, basically, the difference was they cut it in half for the ones that were monitored versus not monitored. So I think that's pretty important, especially with calf prices today. So our takeaways at the end of the day for this research paper was less labor because they were only looking at that list of 8 calves instead of having to look at 400. Better lung scores on those calves when they came out of the hutch at the end, and then less death loss, which is going to be money in your pocket pretty quickly. So from that, I'll hand it over to Jared. You can kind of share our experience a little bit of how things have gone for them on farm and kind of what differences or improvements they've seen going forward.
Sure. Thanks, Dr. Wilson. So, when I originally came to Merck, I came to them because was fighting a 7 to 10 day scours. So that was my initial reason to come. I was trying to identify calves and consistently treat calves with those symptoms. With the current management that I had back then, inconsistency in the amount of calves they were getting treated daily, who was getting identified that day, who wasn't getting identified. All the reasons that Dr. Wilson said, I'm real big on standardizing. And so this program allowed us to standardize the treatment or standardize the identification of the sick animals. So with my goal in mind, standardizing the treatment obviously was a big gain for me. Just identifying the calves early is 50% of the battle, I think. We've changed some of our protocols because of this, marking them early. The struggle we had early was yes, you got an identified calf, but when you physically inspect the calf, there wasn't visually anything wrong. She didn't have a temperature. She didn't have anything visually wrong yet. So we've actually moved to the first day of alert. We're actually giving an electrolyte bottle to probably 75 or 80% of the calves that have identified sickness that day. And then if they're on the list the following day, we go back and start an actual antibiotic treatment or something more aggressive. Um, so that was one of the main reasons why we came to Sense Hub, or with that reason. So after we put a damper or standardizing the treatments, it also brought some light to when we were weaning. Some of our weaning processes have changed through this learning process. We were very aggressive on our feeding and pulling milk and getting them weaned out. I'd say we were pulling milk at 7, going full grain at week 8. At the end of week 8, we were moving to the wean groups. After having the monitoring system on, we've been able to watch the rumination during that period. And with the help of Merck and some of their techs, we are now keeping the calves in the hutch for an extra week. And we're seeing a lot better transition through that hutch to wean group, not having the stress periods that we were having before, or the struggles that we were having before. So another big reason that we brought this system in was just for the movement of animals, identifying calves that need to get moved that week. I think being able to make sure that the calf didn't have any treatments prior to movement. If the calf is not doing as well as its other herd mates in that week, we'll hold her back for an extra week. Now that we have more data available to us, I think we can get more specific with each individual animal and not just group the large groups and just have to have that calf overcome the challenge that she had earlier. So it's just continuing to piece by piece improve our calf area from day one all the way through. When we first started this, we were intending to put it on at the first day old, and we were going to take it off when they weaned. We are still currently putting the tag in at the first day, right when they're born. It's in within the first 2 hours, right when they give colostrum, they're putting the chip in. And we've changed because of this wean period information. We're now keeping the tags on all the way through confirmation of pregnancy after after the virgin heifers. So we're keeping them on through the first 14, 15 months of life right now. We are currently about 7 months into that. So don't have a lot of data on tracking the animals through their first year of life and how that's affecting their reproduction. So I'm very optimistic that healthy calves will obviously breed better, better conception rates, better all the things transitions. So that's a piece for us that we're looking forward to. We've made the investment, and hopefully, the ROI comes back out. We'll see. We do use the lights. The light indication on these tags was another big reason why I decided to go with Merck. Having paper reports is kind of a thing for the past for our dairy. We do use Merck Animal System in our milking herd, so we're using sort gates on there. So I was trying to implement that same system down in the calf area. So getting everything computerized on your cell phone or these LED lights that I found to be very useful. So we turn them on once a day. We turn them on for about 2 hours in the morning after they're done feeding. And so that allows our treatment people to walk through very quickly. What used to take probably 4 hours to walk through 1,200 hutches to treat is now done in about 2 hours. So we've cut our labor time in half for sure. Another big reason I love that is just they get to focus on the animals that need the attention that day. When prior to the system, when you have a person walking through 1,000 hutches, it gets very easy and mundane to just walk very quickly and not identify every calf. So having a list of 40 or 50 or 60 animals every day that they need to focus on, I think it really helps our treatment people not feel overwhelmed in the morning when they walk out and say, I only need to focus on these animals for the day. I feel like that has been a big improvement on the morale for the treatment. I think the calves get better treatment because they know that they have time to spend with that animal. They don't have 800 hutches that they still need to go look at. So timing has been a big improvement, labor savings for us. Death loss and treatment, I'll talk about those. Those are both, Jen kind of touched on it there for Dr. Wilson kind of touched on it for a minute. We were the opposite. I think we were over treating calves. Um, and so we cut our treatments in half. The way we treated them, we're treating them a little bit different, like I said, about the electrolyte bottles versus going straight into a full-blown antibiotic treatment. So I think we're saving a lot of drugs and medicine by just electrolytes or giving that calf a little bump and getting those calves over that hump and not sticking medicine in that first day. I'd say 50% of them don't even come back on the list the next day. That electrolyte bottle was enough to get them over whatever they were feeling that day before. So treatments, I would say cut in half. Death loss is also the same. We cut our death loss in about half. I would say we ran between 2 and 3%, and now we're down between 1 and 2%. So very happy with the labor savings and death loss have been enough for me to justify continuing using the system, especially with the cost of cattle these days. It doesn't take many calves to save to justify paying for the rest of your herd. So those are some key pieces that made me make my decision to go with Merck Animal.
Awesome.
Jared, are there any other like management type practices that you guys have changed? Obviously, I guess, could you clarify maybe a little bit? So you have or maybe I'll just say it, I guess. There's sort of like the individual animal management piece of it and people management piece, and then there's like a system management piece, right? Being able to look at that rumination piece and you get an idea, you can feed back to your nutritionist, you can feed back to how your transitions and stuff are going on the grain guys. Maybe if you have a few more words you want to add to that piece of the two different styles of management, I guess, the individual pieces and then the sort of system level.
Sure. As we continue to grow, I think concentrating or finding that individual animal treatment is harder to get, right? As the size groups get bigger, it's harder to individualize one animal. These systems definitely give us that back. So the individual attention for the animal is a win all the way around. Grouping, we have changed. We've modified or we've seen some of the rumination changes in the times we water, the times that we feed grain, and then obviously that transition period that I talked about before. So we have used that data. Once you get a group data and you can watch that group heat stress, water stress if they didn't get water on time, wind if you had a lot of wind the day before. So there's a lot of things that can throw calves off. Learning those and then just modifying your systems to minimize those impacts for your calves. So yeah, just super happy with the system.
Awesome.
Jared, I do have a quick question for you. This one kind of relates to, could you talk more about the process of the tag installation and then training your team on how to use the technology? What was your experience like with that?
Yeah, implementation of or putting the tag in is fairly simple. It's a lot like what we do anymore with EID buttons or tags or anything like that. It's the same process. Location is a big problem. Location was something that took us a while to learn. At first, we were trying to put them too far into the ear, and sometimes those don't get read as well. They'll get stuck inside of the ear, so then they're not hanging down and they're not reading correctly. So positioning, along with we're putting it at the same ear as the EID button. So we've had to change some placements and the way we do them. But implementing or putting them on the calves is really not that hard. And especially when we're doing it at the same time as that first colostrum or when you're navel dipping or it's just kind of become normal process for us. What was the other question, Haley?
Your team, how was training your team on how to use the tags and utilize the data that comes from that?
So all these systems have their challenges in getting the people to use them. I think this system has the flexibility where if you have somebody who's not real tech inclined, the LED or the LED light is a great offset for them. They don't have to run their cell phone. They don't have to run a list. So my relief guy, who's does not use it. He just runs everything off the LED button or the LED lights. My general calf lady, she's very inclined. And so she has no problem running the reports on her phone. So this flexibility, you can print papers out every morning if you still want a paper. So I think the flexibility in how you get the reports or how the people can use the system, it's very flexible. You can make it as electronic or you can stay with paper if you want. So.
Awesome. Thanks, Jared. Dr. Wilson, I'll turn it back over to you. Sorry, I kind
Oh,
of
no,
cut.
you're good. I was just going to echo Jared's comments on tag placement. Like certainly that's probably the dirty bear on tags is they got to go in the right spot and it's a bit of a fussy spot of where they go. So tag placement when they go in initially and then tag maintenance. So we do have a list that'll come up to tell you, hey, like Jared had mentioned, the tag is stuck in the ear. So that's it's a bit of a trade on some of those labor pieces, right? Like you don't get 100% labor savings for the 2 hours because somebody's going to have to go out and also and put the tags in, take the tag, adjust the tags if they're not working properly. If a calf loses a tag, it falls out, then somebody's gonna need to either find the tag and or come back through and put a new one in so we can keep monitoring that calf. Um, so just those pieces, I mean, it's nice because we can give you the list, but by the same token, like you do have to do the housekeeping. Same way you do housekeeping with the ID tags, right? We're still gonna have to do that same kind of housekeeping. So it isn't just a band-aid necessarily. It's a great technology, but you still need to be able to be pretty focused and have things kind of lined out and organized in order for it to work for you because you got to do the maintenance or else it's never going to work functionally in calf years. So.
Awesome. I do have another, I guess, question for either one of you. You'd mentioned, Dr. Wilson, the thresholds that it's set at 86, and if the score drops below 86, that's when they pop on the list. Can you change that threshold, or is it set to 86 as kind of a standard?
So it is changeable, it's customizable. Certainly on the cow side, I think we customize it a bit more than we do on the calf side.
Okay.
So the calf product has been in the commercial market for a year and a half now, close to 2 years. Generally speaking, I think I don't feel comfortable 100% saying, oh, if a calf is a 40 of a health index, it's way more sick than one that's an 82. Because I think you find if you go look at those calves, a lot of times the 82 might look equivalent to the 40. So that's my opinion. But I think it's much more in the calf space. It's a question of, is it on the list or not? Like, don't overthink it. Just if it's there or if it's not. So I think as we move into some of these older calves, and maybe I don't know if Jared's played with these yet, but as you get into some of those older ones, there might be some more flexibility there for playing with them as they get older, right? So it's maybe a little not less sensitive is the right word, but there's less alerts certainly in those cattle as they age out. I think we generally typically think of calves being pretty bomb proof. If I can get them out of a hutch and get them past that sort of initial transition out, that they kind of go and disappear and do their thing, right? So I think there's fewer alerts out there, but they also are get better at hiding things too. So if they're in a group pen, being able to pull those out and find them a little bit easier, either with the blinking light or a list, I think is very nice too. So yes, we can make it more or less sensitive, I guess, per se. That is possible. Generally speaking, I think we're still I am more comfortable telling people if we're at 86, if you're below, come on the list. And if you're not, then let's kind of leave that alone. But
That makes
that's my
sense.
2 cents.
Another question for you, Dr. Wilson. Does this same tag, stay in the calf's ear through the duration of their life, or does that change at some point?
Yep, it sure can. So you can put a tag in as a day old, and then what will physically, the same tag can stay in her ear the rest of her entire life cycle. Like all the way through. We can breed off it, she can calve in on it, and we can milk her through it. Typically, a lot of folks that we see have already had cow monitoring, so most of them are already collared on the cow side. So typically, they're running an ear tag through the sort of till they're two. As they come into a Springer pen, they'll put the collar on and then run them into their milking parlors from then. Could they leave the tags on? For sure. What actually changes as far as the information we're coming off them is those algorithms change. So we have a suckling algorithm that's going to be during the hutch period. When they come out of the hutch, then they change to a different algorithm. Obviously, they're moving around a lot more and meet their friends, go have a party, do all the things. So the algorithm will adjust for that. And then as we enter a breeding pen around a year of age, the algorithm will switch again. So that's sort of how, and then once it's switched to that sort of yearling type algorithm, it's the same one that'll run through their milking life. So the tag can stay the same, but the algorithms are going to change as we go over time.
Okay, awesome. Um, I guess another question maybe for both of you, if you want to touch on your experience with this. Talk to me a little bit about the customer support that you get from Merck. Dr. Wilson, maybe what you're used to providing to customers, and then Jared, what was your experience, and how did they walk you through this transition?
Sure.
I guess I'll go first. Here's what's supposed to happen. Young stock installs are not nearly as exciting as cow installs. Usually you think about cows, we're going to go collar cows, we're going to go put on 1,000 collars today and off we go. The best way for a calf situation to start is to start in those day-old calves. So whatever was born today or yesterday, we're going to tag those. So maybe it's 5 calves, maybe it's 20 calves, but it isn't a big sort of event necessarily, but it's more of initial, like we want to get the tag placement right, and then we follow up on that pretty quickly. So as far as if you buy a system from us, you get a me or an equivalent to me that's scheduled scattered around the US. There's 10 of us. So we'll show up at least once or twice in that initial like 6 month period. But we'll definitely reach out to you via the internet. So we've got TeamViewer into your system. We can look at your software, and we set up a series of calls. So like we'll see you on the front end, and then we'll see you at 2 weeks, and at 30 days, and at 60 days, and at 90 days. We try and keep that. And our phones are always on, so we're happy to take calls from folks whenever they have a question, they run into an issue, especially in that early adoption period. And then we try and come back either somewhere in that 6 months and a year place and say, okay, let's see, where were you when you started and where are you today? So we can kind of help suss out what that, obviously return on investment is important. So can we come back and give you some information about here's what we're seeing? We don't have group reporting necessarily within the software itself yet. It's supposed to be coming. Hopefully, we will see it soon. But we can pull a bunch of data out of the software, put it into Excel, and give you reports that way. So that's Jared had mentioned we can look at this. The rumination piece of that we found of them coming out of the hutches was quite a remarkable drop that those calves took when they came out. And even cooler to me in my little veterinary world is that we can see that rumination came up when they made changes. That hole goes away. Like it's a shocking thing that you go, the calves told us that this is way better for them. So satisfying at the end of the day. And I'm sure, like a lot of times as managers, we don't see those changes like so concretely. And this was a great visual to say, hey, like clearly we have a problem and bam, we fixed it. Like super satisfying. So.
Agree fully. Um, I agree with the implementation, except we were early adapters and we did it differently. At the time we put the system in, we were in the middle of a key management change. So our head calf manager was leaving and we had a new person on. And so with that decision, I was leaning towards more aggressively monitoring the calves because I didn't know the skills or ability that the person that I had in as a management person. So I kind of went full tilt. I went against Merck's opinion. I went in on the first day, and I think we tagged like 300 calves off the first day. And so we had to close our eyes for about a week. The reports were crazy high, but that was just during that building the algorithm period. But I had a goal in mind that to monitor the calves as fast as possible. So we did that initial, and then we just continued to do the daily. Whoever was born that day, they get a chip at that point. So we did do it a little bit different, but same goal.
Sure. How have you how have you felt about follow-up and like support and that sort of thing? Like, do you feel like you're getting all the information that you need as far as to continue managing your system going forward, or how's that gone?
I feel like I'm pushing the Merc team all the time. I'm always asking for more. I'm always trying to find a better way. They've been awesome from the day that we put it in, and like I said, I wanted to put 300, and they said no. But they worked through it with me. When the reports were wrong, the team is there to figure out why. If sort gates aren't working on the cow side, just the support team with Merc is not an issue. The local guys are great. The online or the call support team is good. The online systems or the computer programs are fairly easy. My on-site labor has had very minimal issues finding, navigating, learning the program. So I think the support and the program is phenomenal. They've been really easy to work with.
Awesome.
Awesome. Jared, do you guys use the app So I don't know if we mentioned that piece of it. So we have a desktop version or a web-based version of SenseHub, and then additionally there's an app so your guys can look at things in the field. So your team tend to use the app primarily, or mainly are they looking at the desktop version?
So we have both. Like I said, we use the flexibility of the system. I do print a paper sheet off every morning.
Okay.
So we do have somebody that gets the paper sheet. My main treatment lady, the calf manager, she does use her cell phone. So she'll have that and she'll know how many the treatment guy needs to treat every day. So we do use the app, we use the paper, and we also use the LED lights. So we use a lot of the flexibility that's there.
Awesome.
Jared, kind of another question for you, and this one might be a little bit more broad. But what advice do you have for other dairy producers that are considering using new calf monitoring technology?
I'm a big believer in monitoring system. I started with the milk cows, I think over 4 years ago. And once I saw that in the cows, I went straight into the calves and have seen the same ROI or happiness with the system, the performance of the system. Um, just because I'm big on it doesn't mean you should be. But at the same point, when you can go back and individually identify calves that are not doing well that day on the size of dairies that we're working on today, I think it's very important for us as a tool to use moving forward. Just it's hard to manage every calf. This system makes it easy where you can manage every calf, and so I think it's a system that everybody should have. Personal opinion, but the easiness of the system to implement it and to use it daily and the ROI, the savings of the calves, the savings of the labor, the treatment of the calves, the death loss, and just the price of animals today, it doesn't take much to pay for the system in saving the life of one or three or five animals. And so the system, I think, today makes more sense than it did even 2 years ago, just the cost of cattle and the ROI on them. So, big believer.
Touching a little bit there on the ROI, coming from my finance background, I always love asking this question. But what is the cost per unit, or what type of investment would producers be looking at making if they adopted this technology?
So in my pre-meeting, I got told not to say this. It depends on your size, right? So it is size specific, but it is a per month per head charge, and so the larger, the less. But contact your local rep, and they definitely are competitive. We've actually worked through some pricing just because we were early adapters, and we're one of the few that are keeping them on from day old all the way through breeding, and so it's been fun to work with Merck through that. But it's very simple.
That was the
Yep.
perfect way to answer that. Sorry, another question I thought of, Dr. Wilson, this one is maybe a little bit more for you. But working with producers, what are the most common, I want to say, aha moments that producers have had after adopting the technology? Or what most common changes have been made to their management protocols after?
Well, I think I'm gonna go sideways a little bit with it. I think the biggest struggle, and I think Jared's experience maybe is a little different here, is the ones that are gonna go in and adopt it. The struggle is the believing the system, right? So you get how much pushback you get from the guys on the ground to say, well, my eyes have always been good enough. I'm a good treater. And what do you mean this list is smarter than me? And I think we see that across in the calf space and in the cow space also, right? Because I mean, everybody wants to be good at their jobs, and if you feel like you are good at your job, what do you mean this other thing is better than I am, right? So I think that's a big hurdle for farms to get over, sort of initially as they adopt things. Is how do we from our team and then on the farm too, from management, get those guys on the ground to really believe and buy into the system. So I think there's a bit of a like hard line you got to be like with Jared saying that they had some people transition stuff in there, and you just say this is what we're doing, period, and then to be consistent with it afterwards. So I think the guys that have been successful with it are ones that are pretty consistent in that management piece of like managers buy into it, and then they get the guys on the ground to say like, yes, you're good at what you do, and we're not taking away your job. We're giving you the opportunity to spend more time with those calves that really need the attention and really focus on, determining what's wrong with this calf today. So I'm going to really use your skill set. I'm actually making your job better and easier in the sense of you don't have to use that decision or run into that decision fatigue piece, right? Jared kind of mentioned that of like, I just have, it's the grind. I gotta go look at all these calves, and pretty soon, whoops, I'm looking at my phone and I walked past three of them and I never even put eyeballs on them.
Mhm.
So being able to give people that, so that's the hard part, I think, is keeping the guys on the rails of like, okay, now adopting that I'm comfortable enough to trust the list and I can walk by those extra calves and it's not going to die. Because that's everybody's biggest fear, I think, if you're the guy on the ground, right? Is that, oh, I didn't treat it. And then it died and then I'm in trouble because I had it dead. So they're always like, oh, it blinked at me 3 times. I'm going to poke it with something because its head was a little funny today. So if we
Yeah,
can pull back some of that sort of overtreatment in defense of my job piece, that's really intriguing to me. And I think that's kind of been Jared's experience when we can say, oh, no, no, no. If it's not on the list, we're going to walk by it today. And if it's, we think we're a couple of days in front of those calves really looking sick, like to your eyeball, the system will kind of catch you earlier. So if I can do that, like she'll be on the list tomorrow. Like if that little blinky winky ear thing was something you're really concerned about, like she'll be on your list this afternoon or she'll be on your list tomorrow if it's really a thing. So give it some time. Like take a breath, dial it down, you're going to be okay and move forward. So I think as far as challenges go, that's probably one of the biggest ones is getting the guys on the ground buy-in. And then from there changes, I think you don't know what you don't know. And we've never been able to really look in the calf space before and look at those rumination pieces or the activity pieces. So in Jared's case, finding that opportunity of when those calves, maybe you knew the transition was a little rough when they came out of the hutch and you're like, yeah, but I'm just going to live with it because it is what it is. Well, a picture is worth 1,000 words in this case, right? When you can really see that thing, really see those kids fall off a cliff and then come back up and go, okay, well, we can implement a change and look at that. The change made a big difference. So that piece of the system management. And I think going backwards to being able to say like, okay, if I have this line of hutches has to go, right? These 100 calves have got to come out of a hutch today. Well, okay, do they all need to go to the same place? Is there an opportunity to manage those of these have had low rumination for a couple of days, these have had a health index 3 times in a row. Maybe I don't want this calf to go straight out in a general population. It needs to go to a halfway house that's a hospital pen, or maybe it's a metaphylactic treatment when it comes out so that I'm less likely to get sick when I come out. So all of a sudden we have information that we've never had before to sort of start making some system level changes, system level opportunities that we just haven't had in the past. So I think people are starting to find those opportunities, and some of them we don't know what we don't know either. So as they sort of go, oh, well, I mean, dairymen are the coolest people on the planet because they go, huh, look at that. I can take this tool and use it over there and solve this other problem that I know I have. So now that you can give people that information and the opportunity to do that, that's what makes me happy about these. I think they're pretty cool systems for that.
that's awesome. One more quick question that I had. Transitioning from the ear tag to the collars, is there much change with algorithm or is it the same algorithm, just a different method of, and do the collars blink as well? So talk to me about the difference between the ear tag and the collar.
Okay, so collars don't blink. There's no lights on the collars at all. They're just a standard hanging collar. So the Sense Hub Young Stock system sits on a web-based platform. Um, Generally speaking, you're switching. Most farms that are on collars that are of size are generally switching to our data flow platform. So we have two different ones, which is confusing because there's a Sense Hub. Well, it's actually a web-based service that traditionally has sort of smaller herds on it, plus the young stock, and then this system called data flow. So the data flow system doesn't talk to the Sense Hub system at this point. So typically, if you're a larger farm, you've had your calves would be on your Sense Hub system, and then when they get a collar, essentially they're going to rebaseline. So have that 7-day period. So generally in the close-ups, if we can do that right there, so then by the time they calve in and transition, then they can just be off and running to the races and the collars. So we usually are talking collars on cows. If you're any kind of a sort gate based system, sort gates are going to run off of collars way better than they're going to run off an ear tag, because we're back to the RFID problems with noise, and I'll get out in the weeds. I won't go there. But generally, if you're going to run a sort gate, you're going to want a collar.
That makes sense. With that, I would like to turn it back over to both of you for any final thoughts or pieces of advice that you want to offer about the product.
Okay. I guess thank you for the opportunity to come and chat about it for a minute. It was kind of fun to visit. And I guess overall, just remember, I guess on the young stock space, it's an opportunity to look at calves consistently. So you're getting 24/7 monitoring on them. And then we're presenting you a list of calves to go look at regularly. So it doesn't matter what your guys have been up to. It's a very consistent presentation of information and an opportunity to then look at them as calves, and then we can stretch that data all the way out into their lactating life. So you can do lifetime monitoring with them. I don't know, Jared, if you have any final comments, I'll let you talk to.
Sure. I go back to just individual care. As I'm in my expansion mode and I continue to grow, I go back to standardization of treatment, and those are the pieces that just continue to keep winning for me. Individual treatment and reduction of treatment. So this system works. It's proven over and over, and for me, I hope you guys can find the value in it. And if you have any questions, I mean, you can feel free to reach out to me at any point. I will be available. So thank you for your guys' time today.
Awesome. Thank you both so much for your time and joining us. I did want to send out another thank you before we wrap up today's episode, and that is to the sponsor of today's episode of the Dairy Signal, DLF. Success starts with the seed, and that's why farmers trust DLF, the world's forage seed leader. Backed by cutting-edge research, DLF delivers high-yielding forage products with the traits producers need to drive profit on their farms. Be sure to ask your retailer about high-performance alfalfa brands like Forage First, 5 Series, and Alpharex seeds. You can learn more at Lacrosse Seed. And kind of jumping back into, if you want to learn more about the Sense Hub, the website for that is sensehub-dairy.com to get more information as well. With that, if there's no more final thoughts or questions, we will wrap up today's episode. Thank you guys again so much for your time and sharing your insights about the product. We truly appreciate it. So thank you guys again, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Dairy Signal. Thank you.